Your mother's insurance lapsed 3 months ago, the hospital administrator announced, not even bothering to look up from her clipboard. We'll need to transfer her to County General by tomorrow morning. They have beds available for indigent patients. I stood in that fluorescent-lit hallway, 36 hours without sleep, watching my mother fight for her life through the ICU window, while a woman in a designer blazer tried to throw her out like yesterday's garbage. What the administrator didn't know, what no one at St. Catherine's Medical Center seemed to remember, was that the building she was standing in, the equipment saving my mother's life, the entire oncology wing that had given hope to thousands of cancer patients, existed because of a single anonymous donor. Me. The administrator's name was Patricia Vance. I'd read about her in the hospital newsletter I received as a board member, though I attended meetings remotely under an LLC name, and my photo had never been published. She'd been hired 18 months ago to improve financial efficiency, which apparently meant harassing families during their worst moments. There must be a mistake, I said, my voice hoarse from exhaustion. My mother had coverage through her retirement plan. She worked for the city for 32 years. The plan terminated coverage for cancer treatment after the initial diagnosis. Pre-existing condition clauses and legacy policies. Patricia finally looked at me, her expression carefully neutral. I understand this is difficult, but St. Catherine's isn't a charity. We have protocols. She's on a ventilator. She can't be moved. County has adequate facilities. County's oncology unit has a 2-week waiting list. Their survival rates for stage 4 patients are 40% lower than yours. I've researched this. Patricia's lips thinned. I'm sorry, but financial reality doesn't change based on research. Your mother's care for the past week has already accumulated over $287,000 in charges. Without insurance or payment arrangements, we simply cannot. I'll pay. She blinked. Excuse me? I said I'll pay. All of it. Whatever she needs. Patricia's expression shifted to something between skepticism and pity, the look reserved for desperate family members who didn't understand medical economics. Ms. Harrison, cancer treatment at this level can exceed $1 million. We're talking experimental protocols, extended ICU care, specialist consultations. I understand what we're talking about. Do you have assets that could be liquidated? A home equity line? We could connect you with our financial counseling. I don't need financial counseling. I need you to continue treating my mother. Without verified payment arrangements, I can't authorize. Then find someone who can. My voice had risen. A passing nurse glanced our way. Patricia's professional mask hardened. I don't appreciate being spoken to this way. I'm trying to help you understand your options. My only option is keeping my mother alive. Your job is to make that happen. My job is to ensure this hospital remains financially viable so we can help thousands of patients. Your mother is one person. I'm sorry, but, Ms. Vance. The voice came from behind me. I turned to find Dr. Robert Chen, the chief of medicine, striding toward us with an expression I'd never seen on his usually composed face. Panic. Dr. Chen, I'm handling this discharge. You're handling nothing. He turned to me, and something shifted in his recognition. Ms. Harrison? Elaine Harrison? Yes. The Elaine Harrison? From the Harrison Foundation? Patricia's clipboard lowered slightly. Yes, I said. But that's not relevant right now. My mother, your mother is Margaret Harrison? Room 412? Yes. Dr. Chen's face went pale. He rounded on Patricia with barely contained fury. Do you have any idea who you're trying to discharge? She's a patient without valid insurance. Hospital policy. This woman funded our entire oncology wing. The Harrison Oncology Center? Named for her father? She donated $47 million to this hospital over the past decade. She sits on our board of directors. Her foundation provides grants that keep half our research programs running. Patricia's clipboard clattered to the floor. I didn't, there was no notation in the file. Because she specifically requested anonymity. Because she didn't want special treatment. Because she trusted us to treat every patient with dignity regardless of their financial status. Dr. Chen's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. And you just tried to transfer her dying mother to county because of a paperwork issue. Dr. Chen, I was following protocol. Get out of my sight. Now. HR will be in touch. Patricia retrieved her clipboard with shaking hands and fled down the hallway. Dr. Chen watched her go, then turned to me with an entirely different expression, one of profound embarrassment and concern. Ms. Harrison, I cannot begin to apologize. I don't want apologies. I want my mother treated. Of course. Absolutely. Whatever she needs, for as long as she needs it. I'll personally oversee her care. Thank you. Can I ask, why didn't you identify yourself when you arrived? We would have what? Given my mother better care than the woman in the next bed? Moved her to a nicer room while someone else's mother got transferred to county. I felt the exhaustion and terror of the past week crystallize into something sharp. Is that how this hospital operates? Different care based on donation history? Dr. Chen had the grace to look ashamed. No. That's not supposed to be how we operate. But it is, apparently. That administrator was ready to throw out a dying woman because of an insurance glitch. How many families has she done that to? How many patients have been transferred to county because they couldn't produce a checkbook fast enough? I don't know. Find out. He nodded slowly. I will. And Dr. Chen? My mother still doesn't know about my involvement with this hospital. As far as she knows, I run a small consulting firm. I'd like to keep it that way. Of course. I'm going to sit with her now. When she's stable enough, we can discuss what happened here and what's going to change. Because something is going to change. I walked past him toward my mother's room, my legs unsteady, my heart pounding. Through the window, I could see her small form surrounded by machines, tubes, monitors, all the technology that money could buy, nearly taken away because someone looked at her file and saw a liability instead of a life. I pushed open the door and took my place beside her bed. Her eyes were closed, her breathing mechanical, but her hand was warm when I held it. I'm here, Mom. I'm not going anywhere. And neither are you. The next 72 hours blurred together. My mother's condition stabilized, then improved slightly. Dr. Chen assembled a team of specialists, the best St. Catherine's had to offer, and they worked around the clock to adjust her treatment protocol. I slept in the chair beside her bed, ate vending machine food, and ignored the 37 messages from my assistant about deals that needed attention. None of it mattered. Only she mattered. On the fourth day, my mother opened her eyes. Elaine? Her voice was a whisper, barely audible over the machines. I'm here, Mom. What happened? I remember the ambulance, and then. You've been very sick. But you're getting better now. The doctors, they've been so attentive. This room is so nice. Private. Her eyes, still sharp despite everything, studied my face. Elaine, how are we affording this? Don't worry about that. I always worry about that. I raised you on a city clerk's salary. I know what things cost. She squeezed my hand weakly. Are you in debt? Did you take out loans? No, Mom. No debt. Then how? We can talk about it when you're stronger. I'm strong enough to know when my daughter's hiding something. You've had that look since you were 6 years old. A ghost of her old smile crossed her face. Tell me. I'd kept this secret for 12 years. Through the building of my company, the first million, the first 10 million. Through investments and acquisitions and a portfolio that had grown beyond anything I'd imagined when I was a scholarship student eating ramen in a dorm room. I'd kept it because I wanted to succeed on my own terms, without my mother's sacrifices being weighed against my achievements. I'd kept it because she'd given me everything, and I wanted to give her something back without making it about money. But sitting in that hospital room, watching her fight for her life while bureaucrats tried to throw her out, I realized that secrets had costs too. Mom, do you remember when I told you I started a consulting business after college? Of course. You were so proud. Business development consulting, you said. I never quite understood what that meant, but you seemed happy. I was happy. And it was true, at first. But the business grew. It grew a lot. How much is a lot? My company is worth approximately $340 million. My personal net worth is around $180 million. I've donated over $60 million to various causes, including this hospital. The oncology wing we're sitting in? I funded its construction. My father died of cancer when I was 9. You know that. What you don't know is that I named the wing after him. The Harrison Oncology Center. My mother stared at me. I've been giving anonymously because I didn't want special treatment. I didn't want people to see me differently. I just wanted to help, quietly, the way you always helped people. You taught me that. You used to volunteer at the food bank every weekend even when we could barely afford groceries ourselves. You said, there's always someone who needs help more than you do. Elaine, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm sorry you had to be scared about insurance and money while you were fighting for your life. I should have told you years ago. I didn't want things to change between us. My mother was quiet for a long moment. Machines beeped. Somewhere in the hallway, a phone rang. $180 million, she finally said. Give or take. And you've been living in that little apartment in Brookline? I like that apartment. Driving that Honda? It's reliable. Wearing clothes from Target? They have good basics. A sound escaped her, something between a laugh and a sob. Oh, Elaine. You ridiculous, wonderful child. You're not angry? Angry? I'm furious. But she was smiling through her tears. You let me send you birthday checks. $25 every year, because that's what I could afford. You cashed them. I donated them to the food bank. In your name. She laughed outright this time, which turned into a cough, which brought nurses running. But she waved them off. I'm fine. I'm just processing the fact that my daughter is secretly a millionaire. More than a millionaire. Don't rub it in. She reached for my hand again. Elaine, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy and safe. I didn't need to know about the money. I just needed to know about you. And you've always given me that. I was afraid you'd feel like I was showing off. Or that you'd be hurt that I didn't need the things you'd sacrificed for. Sweetheart, I sacrificed so you could build a life. You built an empire. That doesn't diminish what I gave, it multiplies it. She paused. But I do have one question. Anything. When that administrator came into my room 2 days ago talking about transferring me, talking about County General, about my insurance. You didn't say anything. Why? You were awake for that? I was drifting in and out. But I heard her. And I heard you arguing in the hallway. I thought you were going to have to go into debt for me. I was ready to refuse treatment. And? My throat tightened. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see how this hospital treats patients when they don't know who's watching. I wanted to see if the values I've been funding are actually being practiced. And? They failed. Spectacularly. So what are you going to do about it? I smiled. My mother, even from a hospital bed, fighting cancer, was still asking me to fix the world. I'm going to make sure it never happens again. To anyone. 2 weeks later, my mother was stable enough to move to a rehabilitation facility. I'd had a private room prepared at the Harrison Oncology Center. Yes, her room was in the wing named after my father, which was a coincidence that I suspected wasn't entirely coincidental on the universe's part. Before the transfer, I requested a meeting with the hospital's executive leadership. They assembled in the boardroom on the 12th floor, Dr. Chen, the hospital CEO Dr. Anita Williams, the CFO, the head of patient services, and a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Patricia Vance was notably absent. Ms. Harrison, thank you for meeting with us, Dr. Williams began. First, let me express our deepest apologies for the incident involving your mother's care. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to discuss systemic changes. The lawyer winced. I've had my team review your discharge and transfer policies over the past 2 weeks. Do you know how many patients were transferred to County General last year due to financial issues? Silence. 437. Of those, 62 died within 3 months of transfer. Your own data shows that patients treated here have significantly better outcomes than those transferred out. You've been running a 2-tier system, premium care for those who can pay, and expedited discharge for those who can't. Ms. Harrison, healthcare economics are complex, the CFO started. I'm a businesswoman. I understand economics. I also understand that I've donated $47 million to this hospital specifically to improve cancer care for underserved populations. Instead, I've been funding nicer waiting rooms while administrators like Patricia Vance chase sick people out the door. Ms. Vance has been terminated, Dr. Williams said quickly. That's a start. But she was following policies that your leadership approved. She was doing her job. The problem isn't one administrator, it's a culture that treats patients as revenue sources rather than human beings. What would you like us to do? I've prepared a proposal. I slid a folder across the table. A patient advocacy fund, specifically for cancer patients facing financial hardship. Initial funding of $15 million. The fund will cover treatment costs for patients who would otherwise be transferred or discharged. It will be administered by an independent committee with no financial ties to hospital administration. The CFO flipped through the proposal. His eyebrows rose. Additionally, I want new training for all administrative staff on patient communication. No one should ever hear, "We transfer you to county," in the same tone you use to discuss expired coupons. These are people fighting for their lives. That's very reasonable, Dr. Chen said. I'm not finished. I also want quarterly reports on discharge patterns, published publicly. Transparency. If this hospital is going to carry my father's name on its oncology wing, it's going to live up to what he believed in. What did he believe in? Dr. Williams asked quietly. That every person deserves dignity. That wealth doesn't determine worth. That the measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable members. I paused. He died in a county hospital because we couldn't afford anything else. He was moved 3 times in his final weeks because of insurance issues. He spent his last days being treated like a burden instead of a human being. I swore I would change that when I had the power to do so. I have the power now. The room was silent. Your proposal will be approved, Dr. Williams said finally. All of it. And I'll be monitoring implementation. Not from a distance. I'm going to be more involved in hospital governance going forward. No more anonymous donations. No more hoping that the money is used well. I want to see where every dollar goes. We welcome your involvement. You should. Because the alternative is that I take my funding elsewhere, and I make sure everyone knows why. 3 months later, my mother was back in her apartment in Southie, cancer in remission, her old energy slowly returning. She'd started volunteering at the food bank again, this time in a management role, helping to coordinate donation logistics with her newly discovered organizational skills. You know what's funny, she said one Sunday afternoon as we sat on her tiny balcony. All those years, I was so worried about money. About whether we'd have enough. About whether I was giving you opportunities. You gave me everything that mattered. I gave you values. Apparently, you gave yourself the portfolio. She smiled. I'm still getting used to having a daughter who could buy this entire building. I thought about it, actually. For investment purposes. Don't you dare. I love this apartment. I'm not moving just because you have money to burn. I don't burn money. I invest it. Same thing, in the end. It's just paper. She looked out at the city skyline. Elaine, what are you going to do with it all? When you're gone, I mean. Someday. I'd thought about this question a lot. In hospital waiting rooms. In boardrooms. In the quiet hours when I couldn't sleep. I'm establishing a foundation. Long term. The Harrison Foundation will fund healthcare access, education, and emergency family assistance. I want it to exist for generations. I want kids who grew up like I did, scared about money, watching their parents struggle, to have someone in their corner. Your father would be proud. I hope so. I know so. She reached over and took my hand. I'm proud too. Not of the money. Of the person who has it. You could have become anyone with that kind of success. You became someone who uses it to help. I learned from the best. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Boston. Mother and daughter. Survivor and supporter. Two women who'd both fought hard and won harder. That hospital administrator had seen my mother and calculated her worth in insurance dollars. The chief of medicine had recognized my name and suddenly found compassion. But my mother had known my worth all along, before the money, before the success, before any of it. She'd seen me when I was nothing but potential and loved me anyway. That was the real wealth. The kind that couldn't be measured or lost or transferred to County General. And it was the reason I spent my life trying to build a world where everyone could feel that rich, even if only for a moment. Because everyone deserves dignity. My father taught me that. My mother lived it. And I was going to make sure no one forgot it. Not in that hospital. Not in any building that carried the Harrison name. Not ever.